would like to welcome all the students to today's webinar. We'll be talking about graduate admissions and funding. My name is Richa Bhasin. I work as an Education USA advisor at New Delhi, which is in India. I will open up the question and answer chat box on the screen. Please let me know if you can hear me so that we can begin with our webinar today. Great. We've had some students saying that they can hear me, and I will start with our presentation today. The focus of our presentation today would be on how graduate students can find the right program, the best program which will, it'll be a best fit for them. We'll also talk about the entire application process, when it can start. We'll be talking about what kind of components are a part of the application, and then we'll be talking about the funding opportunities which are available at the master's level. So before we begin with our presentation today, I can see we have a lot of students who have logged in. I would like you to take a minute and think about why are you attending today's presentation? And why are you pursuing a master's degree at this time in your life? These are some of the reasons that you should keep in mind, or these are some of the questions that you should think about while you're looking at exploring various other kinds of opportunities. Identify primary reasons for studying in the US. Why is it that you would have decided or you are thinking of studying in the US? You should also ask yourself that why is it that you're planning to study now? This would help you demonstrate the need for a master's degree. And in your application, you'll have to mention why is it that you're looking at pursuing a master's degree. You should explain to yourself why you need one, both implicitly and explicitly. Implicitly, you can explain it through your career trajectory and goals, and explicitly, with your career curve, that your career curve has flattened, and you now think very strongly that you need another degree to step up. So talk about your goals, your perspective, and the maturity that drives you, and also talk about that it's a well-needed break for moving ahead. Once you're clear on why are you looking at pursuing a master's degree, you can get in touch with the closest Education USA center. We are more than 400 centers located in more than 170 countries. We'll share links with you. It'll be great for you to click on those links, find the closest advising center, and go see an Education USA advisor. Let's look at the top reasons to study in the US. These are some of the reasons because of which the United States has been acting like a magnet for a lot of Indian students. And if I talk about Indian students, we have over 1 lakh Indian students studying in the US right now. So these are various reasons because of which our students are looking at studying in the US. There's superior quality, there's outstanding faculty, there are excellent resources available on US campuses, there's cutting edge technology, and students get hands-on training. If you're not in the US, if you're located outside of the US, my suggestion or my advice would be that you can log on to the university's website. Just go on their website. You'll be able to do a virtual tour. A lot of universities give you a chance to tour their university virtually. Just click on the virtual tour and you'll be able to see the kinds of facilities, resources available on their campus. For instance, if you are a student who's completed engineering and you're looking at masters in sciences, it becomes imperative for you to look at campuses which can accommodate the kind of research you'll be interested in. You should be looking at the facilities available in those kind of campuses. And United States, with over 4,600 campuses, would allow you to find the best fit for yourself. It's also international student friendly, and I can see that we have a lot of students logging in from various parts of the world. US campuses have financial assistance. It is competitive to get, but we've had students who've made it possible. There's diverse social cultural environment on US campuses. They expect a lot from international students. So as an international student, you become brand ambassador of the country that you're representing. And US campuses have support services for all the international students. All the campuses have a department called the International Student Scholar Services Department, and those departments are fully equipped with advisors who will help you through a journey in a US campus. Oftentimes, as advisors, we are asked that how can we choose a university? How do I know that a university is a good fit for me or is a best fit for me? So a lot of times we advise students to look at the area of specialization, look at the degree offered. You should make sure that the degree that you're looking at is being offered in that specific university area of specialization. For instance, if you're a graduate student who has completed undergraduation in economics and is looking at a PhD program, you should make sure that whichever university you're looking at has that kind of specialization. For instance, if you're looking at statistics, you should make sure that whichever university you're looking at should have that degree. You should try to apply to a mix of universities, which can vary from anywhere about 8 to 12 universities, and it should be a balanced selection to say that you can have all kinds of universities. You can have universities which are highly selective, and you can also have universities where you know that you have a fair chance to get into the university. A lot of times students ask us that how do we know if the university is the university which will be easy to get into or which will be hard to get into. Our advisors that do thorough research on the university look at the profile of students who have been admitted in the recent years, and you'll get a good sense of direction of how selective the college is. Very importantly, you should use your GPA, your grade point average, of the degrees you've attained in the past, and also the scores in your high school. Universities do focus on your academic record. They want to see what your achievements have been. They also like to see the standardized test scores. So if you're going for a master's in sciences, universities want a GRE, and if you're looking at going for a business-related program, GMAT is the test that they're looking at. I'm sure most of you will have seen on the universities that these two tests can now be used interchangeably. My suggestion would be to do a thorough research, look at what kind of standardized test scores they're looking at, and only then go ahead and register for any of these tests. We'll be talking about these tests in a little more details in the following slides. Also, when you're looking at universities, also when you're shortlisting universities, location and climate are also important things which students keep in mind. So for instance, you're an engineer, you're looking at doing masters in sciences. You may want to apply to more universities which are situated at the West Coast, since California is very famous and is also called the hub for the big companies like Google, Apple, and you know that you might just want to work there after you complete your degree. So that could be one of the things in mind. If you're looking at automobile engineering, you may want to apply to universities in Michigan. And if you're looking at filmmaking or anything related to arts, you may want to look at universities in New York. These are some of the things which you can keep in mind while you're selecting. And if you know of friends or if you have people whom you were studying or working with in a specific location, you might want to apply to universities in those locations. If you have relatives in the US or if you have friends in the US, you can look at applying to universities in those areas. Climate is also one of the things students keep in mind. Since you'll be going there for a longer period of time, your duration in the US can vary from about 2 years to from a 1-year course, if you're looking at going for an accelerated degree, to a 2-year program, to as long as 9 years if you're looking at a PhD program. So please keep in mind that these are also few things that one may not think of, but they kind of end up being important. Also, it's important to have a budget in place. Talk to your parents and ask them that what kind of finances they have in place for you. Have a budget and accordingly compare that to the cost of these universities and also the kind of financial aid available on these campuses. Just keep in mind that it's very important to apply to those universities who are accredited, and you should mostly check accreditation by CHIA, which stands for Council of Higher Education and Accreditation, and also of that by the US Department of Education. As you move along your research for universities, you'll also see that some programs are accredited by specific accrediting bodies, and that's called the specialized accreditation. So most of the engineering programs are accredited by ABET. Most of the MBA programs are accredited by AACSB, and you will get more information about these things as you move along the application process. Let's have a look at more things that students keep in mind while they're finding the right program for themselves. It's very important to look at the academic quality and reputation. Rankings is a good reference point. We advise students to have a look at the ranking and keep that as a reference point. However, one needs to keep in mind that rankings shouldn't be the only decision-making factor. It is an important factor and it can be best used as a reference point. Like I was just talking about, when you're looking at the right program for yourself, you may want to look at professional accreditation such as AACSB, which accredits MBA programs, and ABET, which accredits the engineering programs. You might also want to look at the available funding, how much funding is available on the US campuses. Look at the various kind of research opportunities, the specialization options, what do they offer beyond the classroom. So it's important to see what kind of things they have inside the classroom in terms of the curriculum they follow, the faculty that's teaching that program. But it's also very important to see that what do you have outside of classroom? What kind of internships will the college offer you? What kind of job placements will the college offer you? What kind of optional practical training, which stands for OPT, has to offer you? What kind of events do they do? So these are again some important things to keep in mind while you're finding the right fit for yourself. Also, it's important to look at the length of program. Studying in the US is a huge investment of time, money, and you being there. So it's important to kind of first tell yourself that whether you're looking for going for an accelerated program, which could be for a year, or you want to go for a 2-year program, or you want to go for a PhD program, which can take anywhere between 6 to 9 years. Look at the selectivity of the program, look at the total intake. Peterson's website is a good source where you can see how selective the college is, what are the admission requirements. You can also see how selective the college is. It will always give you a percentage of what their intake has been and how selective a university is. And also it's important to do a little bit of research on what the faculty or what kind of faculty pool a university has, what kind of research do they have, Also, it's a good idea to get some information on what kind of resources do they have for research, how much money are they getting for research, because that will directly impact the kind of funding they have for students applying. So these are a lot of reasons, a lot of factors which students keep in mind, but you can have your own set of factors. You can have your own considerations, you can have your own criteria to shortlist universities. These are some which are followed by most of the universities, by most of the students. We'll be talking about the admission process now. So we are at a stage where you know that yes, you want to go for a graduate degree and you have shortlisted universities. Our suggestion is to shortlist about 8 to 12 universities. Let's look at the application process. Let's look at the admission process and the various components which go into an application. You should start planning for your application 12 to 18 months prior to the session. US universities look at your application holistically, so it is very difficult to say that what one thing are they most concerned about, because US universities want well-rounded applications and they determine your applicability basis your academic record, basis your standardized test scores, your letters of recommendation, your resume, application essays or statement of purpose, and also research and work experience. We'll be talking about each one of these components in greater details in the following slides. So let's look at the graduate standardized tests. Graduate standardized tests are tests which students take when they're looking at studying in the US. GMAT is required for most of the MBA programs, and it measures your verbal, quantitative reasoning and writing ability. You can find more information about the GMAT exam on the mba.com website, or you can also find more information about it on the GMAC website, GMAC website. It's a standardized test which would gauge your verbal, which would mean your English, and quantitative, which means your math skills. These standardized tests are required by any student who are looking at attending an MBA program. It could be an American student, a student from China, or a student from India. All students have to take the test to showcase to the universities their ability in the language, in the verbal skills and quantitative skills. GRE is required for all other master's degrees, and as I said just a few minutes back, the universities are looking at, some universities, depending on the program, will look at either the GMAT or they might also consider the GRE. So it's important for you to kind of have some universities, you should have a list of universities you're looking at applying to, check what the admission requirements are, and check what tests do you have to take, and accordingly register for these exams. GMAT and GRE happen all over the year. Just log into their websites, the mba.com or the ets.org, and it will let you know of the centers and the dates on which you can take the test. I would like to talk a little more on the standardized tests for now. Both the GMAT and GRE scores are an important component of your application. It's very hard to say that what is the minimum required or what score is a good score, because it completely depends on the university and the program that you're applying for. Some universities have a minimum mark that is required. So for instance, University of Southern California has requests or demands from the student to have a minimum verbal of, I think it's 147, and a minimum quantitative score to apply to their engineering, master's in engineering program. Like that, other universities have certain mark off, and just be a little careful, because some universities say that it's an average. which would mean that in the batch they formed in the previous year have students who got scores of more than that average and also students who've scored less than that average. So it's very important to have the eye for detail and to see that what kind of scores other universities looking at. Your standardized test scores is a good indicator of your selective, of you being admitted in a specific institution. Then there are English proficiency tests, which will evaluate your listening, speaking, reading, and writing. Oftentimes, as advisors, we are asked that whether this test is going to be mandatory for you or not. And my take on this is that if English is not your first language, even if you've read through all your years in school in English, but still if English is not your first language, it is always advisable for students to take an English proficiency test. It evaluates your various components of the language English, and these are two most popular tests which are taken by students who are looking at pursuing a degree in the US. TOEFL IBT. IBT stands for Internet-Based Testing. It measures your English proficiency. It's offered 30 to 40 times a year. And IELTS stands for International English Language Testing System. And there are two versions of IELTS, which is academic and general. However, if you're looking at pursuing your education, then academic IELTS is the one that students have to opt for. If you're looking at applying, so let's assume that you're looking at applying and attending your university next year, which would mean, let's say, fall of 2015, September 2015. Most of the college deadlines will be this year in December, or they could be in January also. As if you want to be in time, you need to make sure that you have taken your standardized test by September or October of this year. It will put you in a more comfortable spot, and if you've taken your standardized test in time, it will leave you room to polish other components which we'll be talking about in the following slides. Recommendation letters is again a very important piece which gets into your application packet. You should choose people who can vouch for your intellectual abilities as well as your potential to study in the US. You should choose professors who have guided you in the areas you're looking at pursuing. You should approach them early. Recommendation letters play an important role as your recommenders are people whom you've chosen and who can talk about how you were academically if you are taking it from a professor. Recommenders should be able to talk about your strengths in workplace if you're taking it from your colleague or your managers, and it should be taken from someone who's worked with you or who has taught you over 2 years or even more, so that it gives a more clearer picture of your strengths and weaknesses. And it's a good idea to have a complete picture in your letters of recommendation. How it works is that most of the graduate applications are now online. So while you're filling up your application, your graduate application, you have to put the email IDs of your recommenders. It's always advisable to have professional email IDs from your recommenders. The university will directly contact your recommenders and they will have to email your recommendation letter. My request is that you should definitely approach them early so that they have time, and also approach them with a piece of paper which talks about how you are related to them and what kind of work you did when you were associated with them, so that it gives a very clear picture of what kind of relationship you had, and they can talk more closely about you. I'm guessing that most of you would have worked on your resume and curriculum vitae, but I just thought we'll have it here, and if I could just spend a quick minute to explain you what the difference is. When you're applying for a master's program, most of the universities will request you to have a resume. Your resume should not be more than 2 pages, and it's a summary of your academic, professional, extracurricular, and community involvement to date. It talks about how you've spent couple of years, the recent couple of years. CV is mostly required for students who are looking at applying for a PhD or a postdoctoral program. It has a summary of academic and educational background. It should also talk about your teaching and research experience, and it should talk about honors, awards, and publications that you've achieved. Both your resume and curriculum vitae is a different component, and you should make sure that it does not overlap with your statement of purpose. Well, a statement of purpose or an application essay is what we are going to now talk about. So when you're looking at crafting an application essay or a statement of purpose, this slide is especially for students who are looking at applying for MBA programs. You should start with a well-defined outline, and it can act like a rope. So you know you would have an area to cover, and there should be a golden thread running across all the paragraphs you write. The B-School essays should lead to pointed answers to include the most significant events, and these are mostly responses to questions asked by the universities. You should answer the questions directly. Make sure that you're answering the prompt. Please make sure that you stick to what's asked by the college, because we have observed that students kind of talk about other things, but not really about what they've been asked for. So the onus is on the students to answer all the prompts, because once you hit the submit button, the application is submitted and is under review. So please make sure that you are reading the questions. You can make it doubly sure. You can share that with people you're working with your professors, with your colleagues, with your friends, and you can take feedback on your essays. You should provide evidence, and you should not just write a fact on your essays. These are some of the themes, and I'll quickly read this out for you. I pulled this out from 2 universities. The first one is from Arizona State University, and it says, what matters most to you for your MBA experience and why? How will the MBA school provide you that experience? And you have to write an essay on this. University of Virginia's theme was, share your thought process as you encountered a challenging work situation or complex problem. How did this experience change your perspective? So these are the different kinds of prompts, and they are available on the internet. Universities do have their old applications. You'll be able to see the kind of prompts. Most of the applications are released in the month of October, so you'll be able to see this year's prompts as well. And just start building your essays. Just start putting the pointers together that you'd like to include in your essay. We'll now talk about various opportunities to work, which is, of course, one of the attractions for international students to study in the US. So while you are in your degree, you are allowed to work for 20 hours a week, and this 20 hours a week is strictly on-campus jobs. The definition of on-campus jobs is any job which is helping the students of your university. So for instance, it could be a job in which you are doing cataloging for the library. It could be a job in which you're working for the cafeteria. It could be a job in which you're working in laboratories on the campus. It could be any job, just that it has to help students of your own university. As an international student, since you are on a designated visa in the US, my suggestion to you would be to check with the International Student Scholar Services Department before you say a yes for any kind of job. You can work full-time during your vacation or off campus, but make sure that you attain authorization from the department in your university. You also can opt for graduate assistantship, teaching assistantship, or research assistantships. A little bit on these assistantships. These are positions for which you apply. We'll be talking about that in the following slide. Graduate assistantship is when you're helping other students settle into your college. Teaching assistantships would mean when you're working with professors as assistant teacher and you take follow-up classes. Research assistantships would mean that you're working with professors and you're helping them with their research. So these are various ways in which you can work while you're still pursuing your degree in the US. Once you've completed your degree, you are allowed to work for 29 months in the area of training, which is there for STEM subjects. Only if you're pursuing any of the subjects mentioned against the STEM subjects, like if you are looking at pursuing a degree in actuarial sciences or biological and medical sciences, you'll be allowed to work for 29 months. However, if you have a degree outside of the scope of STEM subjects, you get the OPT only for 12 months, which would mean that students who are looking at pursuing STEM subjects get 17 additional months after they complete their degree. It is very important to check with your university, with the ISSS department before you commit to any company for either internship or work. Those are your lifeguards and they'll make sure that you are well within the visa guidelines. Universities like to interview, and interviews also play an important role. So I thought it would be a good idea to have this as a part of our presentation today, because we see a lot of students asking us that why have the universities increasingly started interviewing us? And the reason is that for the school, it is a face-to-face opportunity. It gives them a face to the name, a face to the application, and also see if you are a good fit for their school. It helps school differentiate candidates, an additional opportunity for the interviewer to sell the school of the program. It is also a good way in which the schools can explain you the curriculum or the program that you're applying for and any specific things that you need to keep in mind or you should know before applying. And it's a chance for the candidate to ask questions about the school or the program. So be ready with a list of questions. It is absolutely okay to ask questions to the university. They appreciate students probing. And it is a good way to showcase your communication skills. If you know that you're a good communicator, this could be a very good chance for you to exhibit your skills. We'll spend a couple of minutes on financial assistance before I open the ground for question and answers this evening. So financial assistance is available in various formats in the US universities, and also your host countries could also be very helpful while you're looking at pursuing education in the US. So the first thing is to go and meet Education USA advisors. You can seek guidance from them. You can ask them of other students who've made it possible to study in the US. What kind of scholarships did they give? And if there are any scholarships which are offered by the government or any other institutions in your country. But if we talk about scholarships which are merit-based, these are mostly granted by the universities. Very popular kind of scholarship which students get is a presidential scholarship, and like that there are department scholarships, there are school. In a university, there are different schools, so there are some scholarships which are school-focused also. So they have money. You should meticulously plan your application and make sure that you're able to get that money out from them to make your dream come true of studying in the US. So scholarships which are merit-based are awarded on academic merit. It has no repayment obligation. So you should know if you have gotten a scholarship, it is a gift from the university and there is no repayment obligation, and it can cover either your full or partial tuition. You can get the information about scholarships from the university's website. You can click on international students or you can click on domestic students, whichever is applicable to you, and you can get more information about how much resources the university has. There are various other websites like IIE website, which will give you more information about funding. You can also log into the Education USA website, for which we'll be just providing you the link, and you'll be able to see a huge list of available scholarships in your country. Fellowships are mostly for students who are looking at PhD program. Again, this has no repayment obligation. This has awarded on academic merit, and one additional thing is that it also provides you with stipend. Depending on which state you're going to be living in, the stipend is pre-decided by the university. And then there are assistantships, which we just talked about a few minutes back, which requires performance to services. It's competitive. Like you, every student on the campus, most of the students actually will be applying for these positions. Assistantships is also a good way to cover your expenses while you're studying in the US. Financial assistance is a daunting task, not only for international students, but also for many American students. It's a huge investment, and one needs to have a strategy in place and a budget in place to be able to successfully maneuver through the list that you have for universities. Let's look at the countdown to enrollment application, and let's look at what needs to be done by when. Between April to June, you should decide what's of importance to you. You should make firm plans of studying in the US. You should keep your short-term and long-term goals in mind. You should try to research your choices. US has a wide variety, from a state university to a private university. So from a big campus to a small campus, you should be able to research your choices and register for the standardized test, whether it's the GMAT or the GRE. From July to October, and like I said, you should have taken your tests by August or September. You should narrow down 8 to 10. You should find the applications for these specific universities and register. On every university's website, they'll ask you to create your own account, and then you have to keep uploading the application requirements. You should read up materials we have a library in our office, and like that, most of the education offices around the world have a lot of application building materials in their resources. So go ahead, get in touch with them. You can identify your recommenders by this time and approach them, and let them know you're looking at applying to US institutions. In November, December, Jan, which is a crucial period where you have to click the submit button, you should work on your statement of purpose, your letters of recommendation, and you should be ready to submit your completed application. So this is how the entire application process runs. So before I wrap up, I would like to quickly have an interesting discussion on how do I get funding, or how do I know my application is worth getting some dollars from the university. Like I said, US universities follow a holistic approach. They want to look at your academic record, they want to look at your standardized test scores, they want to look at your resume. They want to look at your statement of purpose, which talks about what you've done in the past and what you intend to do in the future. So how to get funding? My only advice to you would be, don't worry about what has happened in the past, because you cannot change your academic scores, or you cannot change the kind of work that you did in the past. But what you can do is that you can start building up your profile. So you can take a step back. Just take a step back, think about your strengths, think about areas you need to work on, and accordingly build your profile. It's very important to spend time and not rush to do your applications. A quick wrap up, you should stop by our virtual booth to talk directly with our Education USA advisors today. We have a lot of advisors waiting for you, waiting various kinds of queries that you have. You should check out our Education USA interactive series which debuted today. So that's the link to go on it. Find your local advising center, go and meet them. Follow us on social media. All of us are on Facebook. Just go and try to find us. Just search Education USA and you'll be surprised to see how many of us are on Facebook, and we post important information on Facebook. Information related to scholarships, information related to what campuses have to offer you, and also information on what's happening in our own centers. So that's a very good way to connect to us. If you are a serious student and if you're looking at studying in the US, my suggestion to you would be to touch the Education USA Center in your country as soon as possible. With that, I would leave you on this slide which has our web link, and we'll now open the floor for question and answers, and I'll be happy to take up questions from all of you. Thank you for being here with us today. Okay, so I have a Okay, so our first question from a student is that, I'll just read out the question for you. It says, hi, I'm currently in third year mechanical engineering from Hyderabad, India. I have 70% aggregate till my third year. I do not have any backlogs and I am aiming to get a GRE score above 310. I'm planning to do a master's degree in mechanical engineering and go to another country for a job. What directions? So I think that you are on the right track. I would say that prepare for your GRE. It's an important indicator of your admissibility to a US institution. Craft your SOP really well, work on it. So like you said, that you're looking at doing a master's in mechanical engineering, oil and gas. It is very good to know that you have decided of what specialization you'd like to pursue. So please tell the university that why and how did you choose, oil and gas, and what kind of work you've done, and just try to link your application together. But it should be like missing pieces of a puzzle. You should just try to put everything together, and I'd like to wish you all the best for your application. We have another student who has inquired about scholarships at our university. Okay, we're not a university. Education USA is a program run by the US Department of State. It's a US Department of State funded program in which we help students to apply to US universities. We provide accurate, current, and comprehensive information about US higher education. So we do not have any scholarships, but definitely if you come and meet us, we'll be able to provide you information and we'll be able to point places where you can find scholarships. Okay, I have another question here. And the question is, which universities with master's or PhD programs are the best in field of biological sciences? I'm interested in genetics, molecular biology, biochemistry, lab research. Do you recommend any web pages where I can find the information? Absolutely. There are a lot of search engines like gradschools.com, petersons.com. You can definitely log on to those websites and get more information about universities who have these kind of programs. Also, it will be great to look at the faculty they have and the research opportunities they have, since these are topics which would require you to do a lot of research. I have another question of what is the age range of being a student at master's degree in the US. There's no age which the US universities specify to get to a US campus, and that's the beauty of US education. If you're looking at going for a master's degree, you can have students in your classroom who will be in their late 20s to late 50s or mid 60s. So they do offer you that kind of flexibility. Okay, I have another, and I hope that answers our question. There's another question. I'm BTech in jute and fiber technology from Kolkata, India. Due to some financial needs, I was unable to continue my study and started working, though I was very keen for higher studies. Now I'm ready. After 8 years of completing my BTech, is it possible now to go for an MS? Absolutely, and congratulations for making that decision. I think that's a great decision. As long as you're able to tell the university what you were doing in those 8 years, and if you're able to convince the universities, it'll make all the sense for you to take your higher education degree. We have an office in Kolkata. It'll be great for you to go and meet them, and they can help you with your application. Okay, I have a student from Afghanistan, and his question is, since scholarships in the US universities are global, how good are the chances for someone like me who comes from a third world country? I would say that the US university's website can give you a very good picture of how your country has been, how the students in your country have been doing when they've been applying in the past. They do give statistics of countries and also the kind of funding they have for specific countries. So it will be very difficult for me to comment on how good or bad it will be since I'm not a recruiter, but I'm very sure that these universities will have a good statistics on their website. And if they don't, it is your chance to communicate with the admissions department and ask them exactly the same question. I have a student from Bangladesh, and the question is, I have completed my BBA this year. Now I'm planning to start MBA in the US, but costing is main fact to start MBA program. Please mention the MBA lowest fee. So I would like to tell you that MBA programs are not mostly funded, so it's going to be very important for you to go on the university website and check if a specific MBA program is funded. It can range from anywhere about $30,000 to more than $60,000 a year. Have a budget in place, maybe wait, have your savings, just go and meet our EduSA center in Bangladesh, and the advisor will be able to give you more information on what kind of local scholarships are available in your country. Okay, I have an interesting question which says, do US universities look on the history of GMAT scores? Absolutely. All these tests, GMAT or the GRE, are standardized tests, and universities would like to see the more recent scores. Some universities see the best of 2 scores taken by the student. Some universities take the more recent score, and our advice is not to take these standardized tests more than twice. So if you've taken it once already, make sure that you are studying enough before you take your second attempt. So it depends on universities and what kind of scores do they see when you send them test scores of all the tests taken in the past. I have another question which says that there's a student who wants to apply for a PhD program, and he wants to know what do I recommend to write an excellent statement of purpose. Great, that's a really interesting question. There are a lot of resources available on the internet which will help you build your statement of purpose. It shouldn't be more than 1,000 words. You can look at university's website. to say if they have if they have to say anything specific about the information that you include in your statement of purpose. As long as you have your short-term and long-term goals defined, and also that what did you do to make your goals come true, it's a good idea to have, it will be a good idea to have that on a statement of purpose, and it should also talk about why you're applying to a specific university and why and on how do you think that you make a good fit for them. I hope that answers your question. I have another question from a student who's in UK right now. It's so interesting to see that there are students from across the world, and I feel so privileged to be a part of this webinar today. Okay, the question is that I'm from the UK and was looking for a PhD in chemistry and biochemistry, but was unable to find the project title in the university website. In the UK, they advertise quite openly. Is there a website you would suggest? Okay, my suggestion to you would be to write to the faculty who is working on the same project that you're talking about. In my experience, I have been able to find out at least the area in which they're conducting research. So the best for you would be to contact the faculty or the admissions department and discuss the projects that they're working on. All right, it's interesting to see we have questions flowing in. We have a student from Nepal, and the question is, I am Bachelor's of Electronics and Communication. I haven't taken any GRE courses, but I want to study renewable energy. What would be the available option for me and willing to get fellowship at university? So I would say that you should go and see our fellow advisors in the Nepal office. It is said to be a very busy center in the world. They have an amazing library which has a lot of test preparation material, so it will be a good idea for you to go there and begin your GRE preparation, since the master's courses in engineering related field will ask you for a GRE course. And if you're looking at scholarships, then definitely GRE will play an important role. So please go to our Nepal Advising Center, talk to the advisors. I have a question which says, I have completed my bachelor's degree at IIT Kharagpur, and the student has also said their GPA, and has asked me for college suggestions. In the interest of time, I'm really sorry I would not be able to name the universities, but you can always go on petersons.com or gradschools.com to look at universities who offer Masters in Sciences programs. All right, I have a student from Zimbabwe, and the student says, I have a B.Ed and M.Ed from Zimbabwe. Instruction here in Zimbabwe is exclusively in English from the 5th grade up to higher levels of education. I want to do a PhD in the US. Do I still need to take an English proficiency test? I would say that this you should confirm with the university and ask what their specific requirements are. My suggestion to you would be to still go ahead and take an English proficiency test, since your first language is not English. There's another question to say, is freelance work considered as professional work experience or not by the admissions officer? Absolutely. Any kind of work done would be considered as professional experience, and it's very important for the student to explain to the university the kind of work they were involved in. Okay, another question that says, does students being exchange students in other countries in the past in Europe have advantage during application process? Absolutely. As an exchange student, it means to the university that you've had the experience of studying abroad in the past, and it is always considered to be an edge on your application. All right, we have more questions flowing in, and I can see some students are signing off. It'll be good to know your feedback for the session today. I hope the session was helpful and students are now more sure about their plans to study in the US. Let us know if you have more questions. We are, like I said, based in more than 170 countries, and we'll be happy to help you with any more questions that you might have. All right, I have a question, which I have actually a lot of questions which are asking me about the same question about getting scholarships. So I would like to confirm, I would like to reiterate that universities have funding, they have money, but it completely depends on how you convince them, about how you showcase your profile, about how you're telling them what your strengths has been. Why is it that you want to pursue a specific course? How did you think about pursuing that kind of course? And what kind of goals do you have? And how do you think you are a good fit for the university? So these are the different kinds of things universities are looking at. Oftentimes as advisors we are asked that what is this one favorite or what is this one thing that you're looking at in the application, but I would say that they're looking at all the components with equal importance, and they want to see good academic background, they want to see your statement of purpose, they want to see your standardized test scores, your resume or your CV, and they want to see your work and how well you can put your work together. Okay. I also got a question right now, and the student is asking about the role of a GPA, the grade point average, or the CGPA, which stands for cumulative grade point average. They also play an important role for scholarships because the universities want to see that the subjects that you're applying for, how strong were you while you were reading those subjects and when you took tests for those subjects. So they also play an important role. Okay, I have a lot of questions pending, and I would, all right, I will try to answer as many as I can before we actually sign off for the day. Another student has mentioned their quantitative and verbal scores and has asked if he or she would get admission. I do not have an answer to that question because it completely depends on your application and the various other components. I have last 2 minutes with you, and I'm very happy to see that we still have most of the students logged in. Just a few things before I sign off for the day. The first thing is that I would like to wish you luck, all the best for your applications and the entire process. I'm happy you've made the decision of pursuing a higher degree. Get in touch with the Education USA advisor. They'll be helpful. They'll be very instrumental through your application process. And the last thing is that one can never compare admissions to a US universities with previous years. Oftentimes I've asked, a lot of students have asked me that a student like me who got the same GRE score, had a similar profile, had the same TOEFL scores, has gotten admission in a specific college, but I could not get admission in that college. It is very important to understand that every year the applicant pool is different. Every year the universities have their own strategy of recruiting students from various other countries. Don't be disheartened, just spread your wings across, have a couple of options open and apply to more than one university. If you cannot make your luck on one, I'm very sure that you'll be able to secure admission in some university or the other. So please keep this in mind. You cannot just kind of compare applicant pools of the previous years. Having said that, I would again like to wish you luck. Just let us know how you found our webinar today, and all the best. Thank you.